On Saturday, the US and Israel launched extensive airstrikes on Iran, killing the supreme leader. This is obviously a ever-present news story and affecting the markets, but I want to look at exactly what has unfolded since Friday's close on a couple markets, the ES futures, the NQ futures, and oil futures, and look at what's happening here midday. So let's take a look at the ES futures first. This is the March contract. This is what it looked like as of Friday, and we'll look at price action, market timing, and momentum because I'm HEMA ready and that's what I do. So starting with the close on Friday, there was a drop down. That's what I expected in my outlook, in my ES futures outlook report, the skinny and the mini, and then it was consolidating to the close. All right. So then the Saturday events happen, and then there's this gap. So the gap down on the 60-minute chart, interestingly, was completely held by a rising trend line that you see here in orange that I've had on the daily chart for weeks. So if you've been getting my report for a day or 2 or 5, you knew about this trend line. So it's really interesting how on an intraday level, that's where things landed. Now, this was from the overnight action, right? The ES futures open at 6 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. So this is what unfolded there. And then you can see everything started to kind of correct higher, but then started to come back lower again, okay? So then this is where we were in the morning when I published my report. And based on this, I was expecting us to go lower just based on continuing this recent downtrend. However, I always have my backup plan in place, and my backup plan is what actually ended up happening. Futures were able to regroup and turn higher and actually shot higher through even the initial resistance I saw. So what I want to point out here is where we are at this moment and what to do from there. So now I'm going to kind of zoom out to the bigger picture, okay? So I'll show this on the 60 and then back on the daily chart. I think there's still a lot of digesting of information happening, and it's really helpful to pay attention to nearby support and resistance levels as well as the momentum activity. So I'm obviously not going to be here giving you a play-by-play every few hours while all this stuff in Iran unfolds, but I want to show you how I check in when there's big global news like this, right? This is way more of a complex thing than just like a singular economic data report. So the first thing I do is check my charts more often. So I definitely will check them midday, then again by like 2 p.m. Eastern, and then again after the close. And then again in the later evening because I'm trading futures to see where the markets open up. And right now, it looks like things have stabilized a bit, but let's take this to the daily chart and look at where we are in the big picture. So we're still consolidating, right? Even after this big, insane news event that nobody thought they'd capture over this weekend, we can see that the market tested support from the February 5th low, and it didn't actually touch the level, but it approached it, and it's still intact. And we're still beneath the contract high from January 28th. So the question is going to be over the next several days, is this news and all of the following actions going to be the thing that really pushes the market out of its consolidation? TBD, right? To be seen as well. However, right now, the recovery is in place, and I still think it would be important to monitor this entire range from a couple of days ago on February 25th for potential resistance, especially if this recovery keeps going. This 6938 area coincides with this black trend line, right? So now let's do the same thing on the NQ. So this is what the NQ futures chart looked like on Friday. Same story, gap lower. This gap had a different orange trend line on that chart because it's a different security, but you can see it actually gapped down to the trend line. So it was a useful annotation to have on your charts. And I've been commenting and sharing even that annotation at my free weekly live trading show, Ticker Request Live. So be sure to catch the next broadcast tomorrow, March 3rd at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. And also, we put the replay up for a week before the next show. So you can watch the replay if you're not able to attend live. You can even put me on double speed if you like listening fast, because the analysis I share is still going to be useful for a few days. All right, what happened after that? Fell lower, recovered, paused, then resumed higher again. So let's take this one to the daily chart as well. So this orange trend line on the NQ chart is different than the one on the ES chart because the action is different. Also, the quote-unquote consolidation on the NQ is much wider. You can see that it had a contract high back on October 30th, and we've not been able to revisit that, right? So on January 28th was not a new high. It was just a return towards the range high. In fact, it came almost to the middle of the October 30th range. So where things stand now, the resistance on the NQ is still going to be from this range, just like on the ES from a few days ago, so February 25th. And I would look at the middle of it, especially as a potential nearby resistance. So 25,243.38. So that's a level that's based off a calculation. So it's going to be in between two tick values. So you just use it as a resistance that you monitor, but obviously you want to know if the market gets to the tick below it or the tick above it. And then 25,494.75. Okay. Now let's look at oil in the same way. So here's what oil futures. Now this is the continuous contract plotted. Okay. This is what they looked at Friday into the close on a 60-minute chart. Then with the news of what was happening in Iran and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and potential effects on the supply of oil coming out of the area, oil prices jumped. Now, they jumped and then very quickly started to roll back down, as you can see, recovered again, and are now sort of just hanging out. So for this, I'm going to go dissect lower time frame and then come back to a daily chart. So the impact on oil here, you can see the initial impact, but the impact over time, I believe, is going to be connected to the actual sorting out of what is happening with Iranian oil, right? And China gets Iranian oil. There are other parts of the world that kind of depend on it. We in the US don't. So it's going to be interesting to see. That is going to take time because, you know, straits don't just close and open in like an hour. There's a lot of things to happen to get the supply going again. Let's take a look at this now on the daily chart. Here, what was so interesting to me was seeing how there was this jump up. And if you look at it in isolation, it's like, whoa, what a big jump. But look at how it came back to the high from June 23rd, which was the last time that there was a big move higher. And then that session happened to close way lower. Today is TBD on when it will close, but you can see how it tested the same exact level. So even though the Iran attacks are obviously something that none of us traders knew were going to happen this weekend, notice how the reaction to it still respected market levels. This is why no matter what you trade, it's so important to be constantly being aware of the key support and resistance on your chart. Not just the ones nearby the price action, but the ones a few steps out so that if there is dramatic action, you're kind of prepared when it gets there. So what I would be watching for here on oil is that if we close where we are now, around the $7.40 area, then I think it will continue to kind of just digest the news. Again, it could see a pop-up in price if there are more actions that create more stress on the supply chain out of Iran, but it's going to be one of those day-by-day things. So hopefully this was a good reset for you because obviously news like this can be very scary. You wonder what's going to happen in the markets when you come in, especially when it happens on the weekend into a Monday morning. But you can see that technical analysis, trend line, support, resistance, they still work. They just get a little bit expedited in how they're approached. And it's more important than ever that if you come in with your analysis, you are prepared for the market moving the other way quickly and are able to regroup and act accordingly. So if you found value in the analysis of these three markets with this latest news upon us, or just the reminders of the technicals, or both, go ahead and hit that like button and I'll catch you in my next video. And if you are wanting to see how your ticker has reacted to the latest events in Iran and you want to know what I think of the charts, please bring them to Ticker Request Live and I'll see you there.